We coming for that entire empire. Greetings and welcome to another episode of Educeumm. I am so excited to have everyone here today. I have a very special guest, Dr.Gamze from Barton University in Turkey. But before we get into our conversation with her, I wanted to briefly remind you all of what Educeumm is all about. Educeumm is a podcast where we talk to other scholars and educators and we bring it out, right? So all of the knowledge and everything that we need is already inside of us, but sometimes we just need to have conversations to talk about how everything relates to us and how to understand those different topics. So without further ado, we have a wonderful presentation today on Home, Hair, and Hope, Reading Black Childhood and Jacqueline Woodson's stories. So we are going to go ahead and talk to Dr. Gamze now. Thank you so much. Do you mind introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about your work?
Okay, thank you so much. I'm so excited. I'm super excited to be here today. Thank you so much for having like a meaningful conversation, and thank you so much for inviting me to this podcast today. Yeah, and I can introduce myself briefly, like before starting. Maybe it's better. In this January, I graduated from my PhD in the field of African American children's literature. I analyzed Jacqueline Woodson's picture books, like 13 picture books, in terms of critical theory and critical race theory and ethnic identity development. So my PhD dissertation has almost 400. For today, I just try to compress the most important ones for this podcast program, and I prepared this presentation for you and for the readers, for the audiences. I hope you enjoy. And by the way, I'm a professor at Barton University in the Department of Foreign Languages since 2021. Essentially, like African American literature and the cultures. That's why, while searching African American children's literature, I came across Jacqueline Woodson, and I affected her picture books so much because Jacqueline Woodson wrote her own picture books according to her personal lifestyle. These picture books are a kind of biographical information. It is the chronicle of history, like the African American history. That's why I was affected, and I just contacted with her by email, and she like immediately answered me back. And since 2021, like the starting point of my PhD dissertation, we have contacted with the email. And Jacqueline Woodson was amazed actually when I sent an email, and she was amazed because oh my god, you know me like from Turkey, and I was so surprised about your research. And I said that I really like your research and your stories, your picture books. And I started, and 1 year ago I had a chance to go to NYU, New York University, as a visiting scholar, and I meet Jacqueline Woodson in face. It was it was my dream. So great memory for me. I prepared almost 100 questions, and she kindly answered all of them. So it was really so important, like the experience for me. And after I returned from NYU, New York University, I completed my PhD. And in this January, like the 6th of January, I defended my dissertation. And today I just compiled some important points about home, hair, and hope, reading Black's childhood in Jacqueline Woodson's stories. So before starting, maybe I can show the path of the presentation, like outline, introduction, purpose, significance, and the historical context of African American children's literature is coming later. And the power of picture books. Picture books are really so important genre, I think, not just for children, young learners, but also adults too. So that's why I just try to give some brief information, that part. And later, theoretical framework is the methodological part of the thesis. So here I gave some important points about critical race theory and ethnic identity development. Later, the themes in Jacqueline Woodson's picture books, there are a lot, of course, there are many themes, but I choose some of them and the key terms, and later conclusion, why it matters, and the final thoughts and call to reflection. I just choose a question, like we can talk about it together. So I really like this quotation. If there is a book that you want to read, but it hasn't been written yet, then you must write it, like by Toni Morrison. It is so meaningful. So that's why I just started to research about emotional and cultural background of African American children's literature. And the purpose of this study actually, like exploring how African American identity is represented in children's picture books, like focusing on Jacqueline Woodson's work as a case study. Jacqueline Woodson celebrated Black identity in her picture books. She prefers to choose all the meaningful and positive portrayals of African Americans. And I think it is very, very important point. And I really like this so much because we have to see the positive portrayals and the representations in that file. And why?
I'm sorry, I have a quick question. So, based on that, would you say that it has been difficult for you to find positive portrayals of African Americans outside of this context, or is this unique in some way? I do understand the importance of having positive images of African Americans. Would you say, in your opinion, as someone who's not from the states, that it can be difficult to find?
Actually, historical representations are really so stereotypical and really so difficult. In this part, like historical background, I was, while searching a historical background of African American representations, I came across many dehumanizing images, unfortunately, and I was shocked and I was really so sorry about it. And in the contemporary area, most of the picture books writers, illustrators choose like positive depictions. In the contemporary, after 1960s and 70s, I have many examples about positive portrayals, representations of African American identity, Black identity. But before 1950s, like 1940s, it is really so difficult to find like positive portrayals. Web Du Bois, the children of the suns quotation is really so important. Like the Brownies magazine is an important step for the positive depictions, positive portrayals of African Americans. So also I mentioned the importance of this issue, this discourse in my thesis, in my dissertation. Yeah, but the early beginnings of this literature, unfortunately, the depictions and the representations and portrayals are really so dehumanizing way, like misrepresented way.
Yes, thank you.
You are welcome. And why children's literature? Because I think children's literature is very basic area. Like you are just focusing on the early ages, like children, and the children are shaping their minds with these picture books, right? That's why I enjoy children's literature so much, and I choose it like to shape early ideas of race, identity, and belonging, how representation influences self-worth. I try to focus on this issue in my thesis. And why African American representation? As before stated, that historically misrepresented or invisible. So that's why I want to explore more about it. And literature can empower and affirm a identity. So that's why I use literary texts at that field, children's picture books, are my medium actually to do my research. And why Jacqueline Woodson? I explained it before, but she is so well known, celebrated African American author, and her books explore race, identity, family, and community, Black consciousness. So that's why I enjoyed so much, and I choose her picture books to analyze. And I just mentioned before, actually, before is early beginnings, like stereotypical or absent representation about African American picture books. But the 20s and 1950s is the Harlem Renaissance. So this movement is very important about the Brownies book, like first platform like celebrating Black identity. And Webb Du Bois said that it is for the children of the sun. So I really like this quotation so much. That's why I started my thesis this section with this quotation. 1960s and 70s civil rights movement, like Black arts movement. In this period, like African Americans are trying to be seen, like are seen within the political rights, political issues. That's why literature is seen as an activism, as a kind of propaganda, protest. So it is very important part, especially about the rise of diverse Black voices. 1980s and 1990s, new voices, perspectives, like it is the contemporary area, like the focusing on empowerment, complexities. Actually, it is the continuation of the 1960s and 70s and 21st century contemporary era. It is the increased visibility here, that like the most important term, I think, critical acclaim, like ongoing challenges. Like we can see that, okay, there are many beautiful African American picture books, and it is really so positive depictions, positive portrayals, and I really enjoyed so much. And every child should read these books, should have their own bookshelves. Yeah, I can say these kinds of things. Like I can move to the power of picture books. Picture books are not only just for children, but also for adults too. So here, in my thesis, in my PhD dissertation, I analyzed picture books in terms of two sections. First one is the verbal analysis of the picture books, and the second one is the visual analysis of the picture books. So in my thesis, I just tried to give some background information, some technical information about how to analyze picture books. For example, when we look at the colors, how can we feel, how can we analyze, when we look at some linearity, or when we look at some verbal representations. So at that part, I just want to mention windows and the mirrors, identity formation, because windows, like Rudin Bischoff's windows and the mirrors theory is very important at that part. When we say mirror, just it is the reflection, right? When we look at the mirror, we can say that okay, we are seeing ourselves, like it is the seeing that the reflection of ourselves. But the windows is the seeing others' experiences, and I think windows and mirrors are great embodiment of picture books, because young learners, young readers don't know how to read or write. They are just, for example, their first attention is to the picture books. When they see the picture books, just they are looking at illustrations. They are trying to understand what is going on, like the colors, depictions, and even shadows. These things are encouraging, like children, about their visibility. So that's why every kind of ethnicity should see their own portrayals through the picture books. And it fosters also empathy, imagination, and critical thinking in learning environments. So this is another important point. For theoretical background, I mentioned like two important theories, but here I mentioned three. The third one is also so important. That's why I wrote it. I analyzed Jacqueline Woodson's picture books in terms of two important theories: ethnic identity development and critical race theory. So, identity and race are two pioneers figures here. In this section, I gave the most important tenets and the principles of this. It is the methodological part of the thesis. That's why I just try to give like information about these theories to understand race, identity, and it is highly challenging for me because I think like while trying to understand the theories, I am always, I don't know, I feel so complex in myself. So that's why while reading the theoretical books like Kimberly Crenshaw's intersectionality, like the counter storytelling, Derek Bell and Richard Delgado, all these theories, critical race theories, are really so important. And I try to apply the tenets of these theories into while analyzing Jacqueline Woodson's picture books. And I also want to mention this quotation I want to read. Books are sometimes windows, offering views of worlds that may be real or imagined, and sometimes mirrors reflecting our own lives. So this is really so beautiful quotation by Bishop. And yeah, this is the themes in Jacqueline Woodson's picture books. Of course, I mentioned I analyze more themes, but I just choose these themes here. Um, Belonging and home is the most important theme that I analyze. What is home actually? When we say home, it's not just only physical. Like home is someone else maybe, or I don't know, something maybe. uh, I think we should think to the terms not just only by the first meanings that comes our minds. The other reflections are also so important to think about it. Belonging. How do you belong to? So for example, you can belong to someone else or somewhere else. So this is the most important part that Jacqueline Woodson employs in her picture books. Like she's trying to give the idea of home and belongingness in most of her picture books, and I will show some covers, some of her picture books covers to show like to understand better. But before it, as you see, black identity, pride, and the hair. By the way, about hair, I want to mention something. I am after this presentation, like after PhD, as my postdoc, I really want to study the theme of hair, because I think hair is so important and it is very essential to understand identity and beyond the physical appearance. That's why the theme of hair is so important to me. I hope I want to continue my postdoc about this field, like again in African American children's picture books, how hair is portrayed in these picture books, like throughout history, from the early beginnings until now, what changed. So I try to explore these issues, maybe within like comparative context, like not just on the hair, like African American hair, but also the other hair formations too. And these are the other themes. And also Jacqueline Woodson focused on family and black communal, black consciousness so much in her picture books, because this is the indicator of black soul, black spirit. So that's why, for example, in some of her picture books are just celebrating the picnic atmosphere with all of the grandparents and the family members, and it is the exact depiction of love, I think. And another are, as you see, like the freedom versus control, and the freedom is associated in with many important themes. For example, Jacqueline Woodson is trying to give the idea of freedom with the empowerment of book, and I will show the cover just sooner. So here, the other side, which is one of my picture books, like Jacqueline Woodson's picture books that I mention, I analyze. I really like this cover so much. As you see, like we are seeing friendship between Clover and Amy, and this fence is a kind of barrier in this story. It is the like distinction between these whites and blacks, let's say. So it is really so emotional. We can see how this friendship construct like breaks the barriers. So how the childhood pretty like childhood emotions are against all these nonsense historical discrimination, unequal practices. So, and as you see, the illustrator E.B. Lewis focused on the nature, so the green atmosphere, because green and nature is always associated with the serenity, like peaceful nature. So it is a kind of hopeful feature that the Jacqueline Woodson is trying to give this message in this. And also these two girls looking at each other is a kind of deep emotional aspect that we can think about it. And each kindness is another one that I really, while reading, every time I was crying. I'm crying actually, because it fosters the idea of empathy. We are seeing that the main figure, the main character, protagonist is Maya. Maya is, I think, Mexican American girl, and she's a poor girl, and she comes to the classroom, but her classmates are unwelcomingly behaved to her. So that's why the teacher is trying to give a ripple example. When you feel something else, like when you come across with someone else with good emotions, you can foster the other good feelings too. So, but in this story, the other girl first, yes, unwelcomingly behaved, but later she understands that she's a good friend, but she's not seeing Maya anymore. At the end of the book, we are not seeing Maya because Maya changed the school, I think, because of some problems. So this girl is sad because of not behaving so well to Maya. So this is very, I don't know, so emotional. Jacqueline Woodson narrated this story within perfect depictions, perfect word choices. So, and also I asked this issue to her that how can you manage to touch these emotions so deeply? And she answered me back that it is just the experiences that I lived in my life, and I don't know, I feel so emotional, and I really liked so much. This is the experience that I mentioned. And the day you began is the picture book that you celebrate diversity. We are seeing like the diverse celebration of diversity, diverse background, like many children. And here, Jacqueline Woodson is trying to give the idea of the importance of book, I think, the empowerment of book, because we are also seeing that through the book, like it is the reflection of other colors, like it's the kind of powerful strength of the books. So in this picture book, the story is a kind of that you are experiencing. Every child has a vacation, but this girl doesn't go anywhere else. But because of book, she actually can travel many places. She discovered this one in this picture book, and it is really so enjoyable journey for her. So conclusion in outcomes of my PhD dissertation is actually like the representation shapes identity. I learned literature as a tool of resistance and amplifying Black voice. As before, I said that authors like the Jacqueline Woodson's, like contemporary authors, affirm the richness and complexity of African American experiences. This is very valuable. And building a more inclusive world. Jacqueline Woodson especially chooses not only just African Americans, but also the like Latinos, Mexicans, Arab Americans, like from every background. Children are important, building a more inclusive world. And research contribution, I think this is very important about research, like scholars area, because this study adds to growing scholarship on race, identity, and representation in children's literature. And my last question, actually, what if every child saw themselves in a story? Would the world look different? Would empathy grow stronger? I think everyone should think this question in their lives. And because, as Jacqueline Woodson said, that diversity is about all of us, not about us having to figure out how to walk through this world together. And this is all. I thank you so much. I'm also asking this question to you. What do you think about this issue? This
For sure. Well, I have a few questions, and then please feel free to ask me any questions that you want. First, I just wanted to commend you because I am a scholar and I've been to several well, I don't want to say several, but I've been to a few foreign conferences where people who are not black talk about black culture and history and things of that nature, and they have not done half of the research that you've done. So first, I just want to say thank you for doing research and being thorough and getting in contact with Jacqueline Woodson, understanding the history, right? You went all the way back to the 1900s. So I really appreciate, the timeline and trying to understand the complexity of what it is to be black in the United States of America, right? Because it is a very different experience than it is in any other part of the world. It can be related to, but it's a very, very different experience, right? I think it's also really interesting as you go into hair. I think that that's going to be a really interesting subject for you because hair, as you know, in the United States of America, particularly for Black women, is a very big deal, right? We talk about Madam C.J. Walker and why Black women used to have to press their hair so they would look straight like white women because that was what was presentable, right? And how we are during the 1970s, we started being able to wear our natural hair, and that became more acceptable. But still, it is still an issue. That's why we have the Crown Act, right? In many places, I
yeah,
cannot wear my hair as it is, right? They would want me to wear a wig or something of that nature. So hair is still a very sensitive and tough subject, right? And also when you get into hair, you get into the diverse cultural nature of Black Americans, right? Because as you may or may not know, after the transatlantic slave trade, when Black people or African Americans in this space were enslaved, anyone with one drop of blood was considered Black. So Black and Latino, Black and white, Black and indigenous, Black and anything, Black and Irish, Black and Chinese, everybody was Black, right? And so you have all of these
yeah,
different textures, you have all of these different skin colors, all these different complexities. We have very diverse communities, right? Because of our history and our culture. And that's why I think that when you asked, you said you asked Jacqueline the question, like, how do you write these? Said from experience. If from experience, in my family, I have every culture you can think of, and all of my babies say that they're Black because when they go outside, they're identified as Black people. They're not identified as mixed. They're not identified as Black and Mexican. They're identified as Black, right? And so we know those differences within our community. And then there's a lot of issues around here, right? There's a ranking on here, and so it's a very, very, very sensitive issue to get into when you're talking about Black people's hair. And but your path, you know what I'm saying, as you're going, it seems that you're very informed and that you continue to ask the right questions and you continue to engage with the right people. And I'm appreciative of your theories as well. Sometimes it's exhausting when people want to talk about Black culture and use white theorists, right?
Yeah, yes, that's right.
It's exhausting, right? That we have Black theory, we have Black books, right? We have Black literature, we have Black scholars, right? From before the 90s, right? If you want to go to Du Bois, you know what I'm saying? We have all kinds of African American amazing scholars that have been talking about our issues, right? So I just want to say thank you, as far as that is concerned, in your level of research and commitment to what you are talking about, because I have definitely had several experiences where the commitment has not been nearly as deep as yours has been. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Um,
Thank you so much.
for sure, yes. As far as where research is concerned, I did have two questions. So I feel like very aware on how picture books, you know what I'm saying? Because you explained very well how important they are for young readers. But a couple of times you mentioned the importance for adults as well, but you didn't really go into detail about this. So could you talk to me a little bit about why and how picture books might be beneficial and important for adult readers as well?
Yeah, actually, I can answer these questions with the questions that I asked to Jacqueline Woodson, actually, because some of Jacqueline Woodson's picture books are really so harsh. For example, when I saw some pictures about slavery, for example, Showe, it affected me so much, like with the depictions, with all the historical images, that the historical backgrounds. So, and I asked this question to Jacqueline Woodson, says that is it really picture books for young learners? Because I think these pictures are really so, and this topic, the pictures are so emotional. Because whenever I hold these kinds of pictures, it is not just only Jackson Woodson's picture books. There are many issues about slavery. When I look at these pictures, like it seems so harsh. And Jacqueline Woodson told me that it is not just only about the young learners, it is also about the adults too, because yeah, the picture books are trying to give the idea within the basic supplements, basic essentials. For example, you are just only seeing a few words, a few lines within the essential points. So that's why picture books are very important, and that's why it is also for adults too, not just because of the choices of the topics are harsh, are really so, how can I say, historical truth. So that's why we have to consider about this issue, and I really appreciate Jacqueline Woodson's answer at that point.
Well, I agree 100%. I just from the images, or particularly the one with the other side with the Black girl on the fence and the white girl like sitting on the fence. There were so many things just in the image, right? The distance, right, between the two, how she
Yeah,
was like off in the background, how she's looking over her shoulder. I know growing up, and I was born in the 80s, but even growing up, there was still some type of fear over creating relationships. Is it okay? Is it safe? Right? I mean, that's for both sides, right? But more so for Black children, because Black children would be the ones to get reprimanded. Also feel agree that picture books are for adults as well, because a lot of times they represent their experience as a child, right? And
yeah,
so
yes, that's right.
now, like, I can show my grandchildren or my daughter or my cousins what it is that I experienced or why you're having this experience. Because a lot of times, if we don't understand the past, we blame everything on ourselves, right? Everything is
Yeah,
our fault. We don't understand that there's historical context to the way that we've been treated, right? And the way that people see us in the world. It has nothing to do with us as individuals, but a lot with the things that have been happening around us for hundreds of years, right? So I'm in
yeah, yes, that's
100%
right.
agreement that picture books are as useful and as especially picture books of this nature, right? Are as beneficial
Yes.
to adults as they are to children.
Yeah, yes, that's right. And it is really so enjoyable genre that you are not get bored while reading it, right? Because you are also like the other, all of the essential are appealed, like not just only eye, but also ear, but also the other senses, like are living while reading. So that's why it is very important to think about.
Yes. Okay, I have one more
Yeah.
question and you can ask me whatever you want. Okay. My last question is based on your research and your enthusiasm for children's books, do you plan on writing any books of your own in the near future?
Yeah, yes, actually now I'm trying to write some picture books. And actually I applied a scholarship, like a fellowship about like writing about written my picture books, but I couldn't get like positive answer, like but all of the attendants are book award riders, so that's why I think I am just a beginner. I am in the starting of the beginning position. So I'm trying to write the picture books about the eyes of animals. Each book is the narrator of different animals. So for example, my first book is narrated by a mouse, and because while I was living in New York, I saw many mouse everywhere, and I love it. I really like, and I'm not afraid of any mouse there. So that's why I just thought that I wrote some things about it, and it is my first picture book, and it will come another ones from another animal's eyes. So this is the collection of the eyes of the animals, the eyes of the mouse. So yes, I hope, I really want to continue it in my
Congratulations.
American experience. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, it's very exciting. Okay, yeah. You had some questions, so I'm not gonna because I could keep going. But what questions did you have for me? I'm listening.
Yeah, actually, my question is to you about this issue. As a scholar from Turkey, I am studying African American children's picture books. How is it seeming from America, like from outside? Is it seeming like professional, or I don't know, or different, or I don't know. How is it seem? Like I cannot express myself briefly, I think.
Mhm.
I'm just trying to choose the correct words, but yeah, because I am not black, I'm not African American, but I am really so interested in this culture, this history. But from outside, for example, when I met Jacqueline Woodson welcomed, yeah, me so well. For example, I showed like presentation, misrepresentation, and stereotypical images of African Americans to her, and she didn't judge me. Like she didn't say anything else about. For example, while telling this presentation, I used like these terms, like the written terms, but I think it is not said like that. For example, in my presentation at NYU, I said that like the in the beginning of the presentation, I mentioned this presentation involves dehumanizing images. First, I'm really so sorry about it, because for example, while saying some words, like we are not saying like n word or something like that, and I didn't know that. When I meet Jacqueline Woodson, I said that what a shame, Gamze, but I didn't know that I just say these words, like, but the Jacqueline Woodson didn't judge me, didn't say anything else about it. Like, did you understand me? So
I
I
did
feel so ashamed, but I didn't know that I could say it or not. Like,
for
yeah,
sure.
this
Yeah,
one.
so for sure. So I'm gonna repeat the question, and then I'm gonna answer. Okay. So the first
Sure,
question
please.
I heard you ask was how in general and in my professional or scholarly opinion, because I don't speak for all black people, but how in general do we feel about white people producing scholarship on black experiences, right? Particularly white from outside of the United States of America. So I always ask the tough question. And we had a brief conversation before our interview. And my first question that I asked you was why? Why are you studying black people? Right? And you gave a very honest answer. And so for me, it's about energy and about purpose, right? Your purpose was clearly because you were passionate about it. You found these amazing stories and you felt that you could relate to them in some way, right? And it also opened your eyes to things that you were not aware of before. It allowed you to dig into a research area that you felt was important and needed to be shared. Anyone that is on that path, yes, right? Please come because to be honest, most people historically who have written about Black culture have been white people because they have been the people with access to school, access to money, right? A lot of Black scholarship is still overlooked, it's erased, right? And they go to white scholars as the go-to person, right? So for me, it's beneficial to have someone like you studying Black literature because hopefully you will redirect them to the Black scholars, right? Because you use the Black scholars in theory in your work. You highlight them. You don't say I know everything. This is research that I've done on a culture that is outside of myself, right? And the research does need to be done, right? A lot of times as a Black scholar, when we're talking about these issues, we always come across as angry or upset or mad or something is wrong when we have these conversations. And to be honest, in a lot of spaces, we need white people to talk to white people so that they understand, if that makes sense. And so I I agree that sometimes it is off-putting to find people who are not African American talking about Black experiences when they're uninformed. They've done little research when they don't really know any answers, and they're talking like they know everything about Black culture. That's very offensive, but that's not something that you've done, right? The second question that I heard you ask has to do with language around Black people historically, and language that is often deemed as offensive, right? Many of these terms are not things that you could know if you were not in this space. Now, the N word, I think, like kind of globally, we know that that's a term that you don't use, you know what I'm saying, in regards to Black people. And Black people are allowed to use it amongst themselves because it is what it is, right? It's a cultural barrier, and it's really not anything that I feel like we have to explain. But within that space, there are Black scholars who are against Black people using it within their own community, and there are Black scholars who are for it, right? So some people argue that you take a word and you transform it and it becomes a sense of empowerment, right? Words change all the time, right? When we think of the word gay, for instance, it originally meant like happy, go lucky, you know what I'm saying? Things that are my mom's last name, her maiden name is gay, and my whole family, right? Hundreds of cousins and siblings whose last name is gay, right? But she's a teacher. And so when she goes into the classroom as an adult during this time period, her students are right. And so we have to have this whole conversation, right? We have to have this whole
Yeah,
conversation on and so I think it is very important, like in your research, to understand what these names mean, because you will be dealing with caricatures such as the Tom, the Buck, the Coon, the Mulatto, you know what I'm saying, the Jezebel,
yeah,
right? And there are terms that are not nice and that should not be used casually, but when you are explaining something, the reference is needed, you know?
yeah,
And definition is needed so that we can understand how these terms reiterate themselves in different spaces and why we can still, because a lot of the things that you're reading in your storybooks that were happening in the 50s, 60s, 80s are still happening. It's 2025 and we still have people having those experiences, having those issues, right? So the conversation
yes,
does need to be had, and it needs to be explained that this is not something new, but it's an issue that needs to be fixed, right? And as Jacqueline, I think you said in one of your quotes, it's not an individual issue. It's not an issue that Black people can fix on their own. It's going to take a community.
yeah,
It's going to take
yes,
several of our scholars working together to fix these issues and to make these the information clear, to combat the erasure, right? The blind spots, right? It's going to
yeah,
take all of us, right? And it's going to take all of us learning about different things. And the last thing I'm going to say about this particular is because I am, a professor in African American Studies, Black digital storytelling, AI, all of these different things. And I often talk to my white colleagues. I'm like, it would be insane for me to tell you that you cannot teach Black studies because that means that I can't, you're Egypt, not, excuse me, I can't teach Greek mythology. I love Greek mythology, right? I also love, but like if you can't teach Black literature, I can't teach Greek mythology, and I teach it, right? If you can't teach
yeah,
Black literature, there are so many things that I also, in turn, cannot teach, but I do, right? We study historically white culture and how that culture relates to us and how it has transformed our experience. And I believe that Black culture does inform your experience. It does transform your experience. So it is important to study it, but study it thoroughly. Study thoroughly. Now, no surface studying, go deep, right? Have those conversations, ask the hard questions, right?
yeah.
and the fact that you even asked me that, it is means that you're asking yourself those questions as you engage with the literature. And I think that's the first big step. You have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why do I want to study these Black people? Right? Is this offensive? Right? And then when you can answer those questions and you can and it's not offensive, right? And then you can explain yourself because you have great energy, right? Your energy lets me know that the objective is to inform, not to take anything away. But
Yeah.
I think that's where a lot of the fear comes from. There's been a lot of theft in the Black community of our stories, of our culture, of our heritage, of people making claim to things that are, you know what I'm saying, originally or originated by us. It's not that you can't use them, but like just acknowledge where it came from. Again, acknowledge why the conversation is being had and why it's important to be had, and the work that we've put in to produce those things and the circumstances that we were able to produce them up under.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that the work you're doing is amazing, especially with the research and things of that nature. I am very grateful. And like I said before, we need individuals like you to talk to individuals who won't talk to me. Right? Yeah. So please
Thank you
continue.
so much.
Yes, for sure. I've 100% enjoyed this conversation. I'm just want to trying to see if there are any other like pressing questions that I definitely wanted to ask. But I feel like we went over so much. We talked a lot about colorism and we talked about the importance of Black literature and how it talks about family in the Black community. We talked about hair. We talked about the importance of picture books for children and adults. We went over a lot of Black theory, right? And we talked about, I think maybe the most important thing that we talked about is the need for white scholars to do their research, you know what I'm saying, on Black literature when we move into this arena to talk about it so that we can have these engaging conversations. So that hopefully eventually we can have the hard questions, right? Because for me, the next step is why? Why is this still an issue? Why do we still have these boundaries? Why are we still concerned, right? And those are the really, really difficult conversations to have, right? You know,
Yeah,
why
yes, that's right.
know? Because as a Black woman, when I travel, sometimes I go into spaces and I don't know. I think the people assume I'm going to be different than what I am, and so it's sometimes it's really hard to overcome that barrier. It's like I don't know what you were expecting, but this is what you get. So I think it's awesome, right, to be able to have someone like you to soften landing in certain spaces, and it was exciting to know somebody's research that's in Turkey. Like that is
Yeah.
like Jacqueline, you're in Turkey and you're talking what about the African American experience, right? So it's like, okay, I need to go to Turkey, you know, so and see what's going on over there.
That's the reaction. Yeah, yeah, yes, that's
Yeah,
right.
I think it's awesome.
Thank you so much. Really, I really enjoyed while researching my issue, and I really want to continue this field, and I really want to involve in the academia of the United States because it's my dream. Actually, I'm trying to achieve it. I'm trying to study in this field. And I try to create the awareness from this perspective. I want that the people can say, okay, from Turkey someone else just studied this issue. Wow, this is I try to be seen from this perspective. And thank you so much for this opportunity, and I enjoyed so much for this invitation, and I'll be very honored to be here with you today, and really so grateful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And the last thing I want to say is, you know, as you enter, you know, the this particular area of conversation, particularly in the United States and in other spaces, right, and as well as in Europe, because I told you I was when I was in Italy this past summer, like summer before last, I definitely came into some scholars. I was just like, wow, why are you talking about Black people? Please stop. You know, and so I encourage you to speak up, right? And when you find people misrepresenting, they have lack of information, lack of communication. And I challenge you to ask the hard questions because when you take on this scholarship, that's what you have to do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
those are the so it's a double-edged sword, right? Because the information is, but you also like find your space in that kind of challenging space, right? Especially within academia, because it is still a very I don't even, I can't quite put the words to it, but it's
Yeah, yeah.
still very, you know, and we're still
It
making
is
our,
real.
yeah, I think just to keep
Thank you.
addressing your why. Yeah, because I think that's kind of where like your grounding is. This is why it is important for me to continue to do this literature. And I think that's dope. So Thank you again. This has been a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. Good luck on all of your endeavors. And I know you're going to do amazing in Buffalo. Please, give us an update, and let us know how the presentation went. But our presentation was awesome. So I know that Buffalo is going to be great as well.
Oh,
Thank